She is the second coming of the OP support character. She is going to be a very versatile, very strong replacement to someone like Kazuha, right? She's kind of the Kazuha of Geo, right?
Subscribe, please.
Alright, hello YouTube. We have a new details came out for 5.1 regarding banners and all of that good, and I kind of want to talk about it, right? So you can see here that's like just a kind of a recap of all the events and stuff that's going to be happening here. But what I want to talk about specifically here is obviously going to be the banner right there. So the banner is kind of interesting. Obviously we have Xilonen, new character, phase 1. She's going to be available when the update goes live, and that's very, very hype. On the other hand, the rerun is gonna be this girl right there, which is Chiori. So the thing is, first of all, I want to talk very briefly about Chiori. The problem with Chiori is that I feel like she's pretty decent. She's definitely an upgrade to Albedo. I think the problem that you might see with her is that she's kind of limited to whom she can play properly with, because she needs Geo characters to have construct. Unfortunately, one of the best Geo characters that we have recently in terms of DPS, like main DPS that she can like support, has been Navia. And the problem is that Navia does not have a construct. So the issue with Chiori is that she's okay, but she needs construct. And Navia doesn't have a construct. So she kind of feels like she's underwhelming, because you're gonna have to at least like go triple Geo if you want, right? And that's gonna limit how well you can build your team, right? You're gonna want like Navia, Chiori, Zhongli, something like that, right? And that's gonna limit what you can do, obviously, because then you can't have like Frida in the team and stuff like that, because you're gonna like some healing. So I feel like she has that issue where she really becomes more versatile when she actually gets that C1. And not everybody wants to put that to get a constellation for a 5-star, obviously. So I think she does have that issue. That said, I think her design is absolutely sick. Her weapon is absolutely awesome looking. And I really, really like her, but that's kind of why I didn't pull for her personally. Now, talking about Xilonen. Xilonen is she's the GOAT! The GOAT! Xilonen, she's going to be absolutely amazing. She's a support, she can heal. Because of she's Geo, she's gonna have some amount of shield. She has a massive buff for the team, defense shred. She is the second coming of the OP support character. She is going to be a very versatile, very strong replacement to someone like Kazuha, right? She's kind of the Kazuha of Geo, right? Now, she doesn't have grouping ability, right? But she has healing instead. And the other thing is that Kazuha needs to swirl enemies, right? When we use Anemo, you need to swirl the correct element. So sometimes when you build teams and when you try to swirl an element, it can be sometimes difficult to swirl the proper element, sometimes difficult to do a double swirl. And when an enemy waves dies, for example, you need to reapply the swirl, otherwise the debuff is obviously gone, right? So you need to re-swirl again. And that has a disadvantage, but Kazuha is still incredibly powerful. Now, Xilonen, she simply defense shred and buff her team just by existing, right? You just like, you get her on the field, you do her very fast rotation, and you can just filter out, and passively she's going to defense shred, she's going to buff the team, and that also means, because it's an aura, even if you clear a wave, the other wave is still gonna get that debuff. You don't need to reapply it, which is incredibly good. Now, she has some limitations. She cannot defense shred for Geo. She cannot defense shred for Anemo. Wait. No. Geo is fine. She can't have samples of Anemo and Dendro, I believe. But she does have Geo. So essentially, she's also limited. She cannot essentially interact with elements that can't be swirled, the same way as Kazuha, right? So she's very good, and while she doesn't have the grouping, obviously she has the healing, so she's going to be very, very strong with a character like Furina, that Furina is like the best character in the game, literally. So she's going to be a very good addition. Like, if you didn't have like a very strong healer, if you don't want to use Jean or something like that. Obviously, she's single target in her healing, but the healing's still very good, and I don't think it's going to impact how bad she's gonna be, especially with Freda being so good, and a lot of people are going for constellations and stuff like that. So even if your healing is not like as instant and team-wide, that's gonna be able to get your Fanfare maxed out. If you have like C1, C2 with Freda, it's still gonna work out very, very well. So Xilonen is gonna be amazing. On top of it, because she's from Natlan, she has obviously the Night Stall State. She's gonna be able to use the absolutely broken new support set that's come out in Natlan. And so she's gonna be very strong for character of the region, like Mualani, which is awesome. So she has very, very, very good prospects. The other thing also is that a lot of people tend to be like, okay, who's better, Xilonen or Kazuha? Well, ¿por qué no los dos? ¿Por qué no los dos? She says. You can play them together and get double the benefits. Absolutely amazing. Okay, so that's kind of my thoughts on the 5-star running for phase 1. Now, the other thing we want to talk about is obviously the 4 stars. So we have Dori, Candy's nuts fit into your mouth, as well as Colette. So first of all, Dori. Dori is memed on. A lot of people hate Dori, design-wise, character-wise, personality-wise, all of that. Now, that said, a lot of people think she's like one of the worst characters in the game. She's actually not that bad. She's a weird mixed bag, but she's actually like an on-field driver. You can use her on-field in teams like, you know, like in Dendro Electro teams, essentially, right? In your, what's it called? You know what I mean. It's escaping me. So yeah, she's okay. She's actually not that bad. I think the problem is that she can feel a bit clunky in her gameplay, but she's not absolutely terrible. Now, that said, I think she's kind of like the one you don't really want to get on this banner, essentially. I know a lot of people don't really like her. She does become relatively strong with like Constellation and stuff like that, but yeah. I know a lot of people don't want her, and that's perfectly fair. I don't care much about her. I'm not building her. Not for now. So yeah, whatever. Like, as an on-field driver, I'd rather play someone that can like kind of quick swap, like Kishing or something like that, you know. Now, Candice. Candice is actually pretty strong. She kind of has like a defensive kit. She gets very strong with Constellation. She can fit pretty well with certain teams, with some like Farina, for example. And she's actually pretty decent with a character like Mualani, actually. So if you want, you can probably like pull for this and do a team like Mualani, Candice, like Xiangling and Xilonen, and you have a very strong team, right? So that's definitely a possibility. I think she's pretty good. A lot of people kind of underestimate her, but she's really not that bad. I think she's a pretty decent character that you can slap in your team. I think she's also pretty good with a character like what's her name? Oh, like Kino, for example, if you have her, if you like her. And I would say, in terms of design, I think she looks absolutely amazing, so she's definitely a good option. I'm gonna build her. She's been on my backlog of character to build, so I'm definitely excited to get more constellations for her. Now, finally, Colette. Colette is the first character you kind of meet in Sumeru, and she was like the first Dendro character, right, outside of the Traveler. And she was like that free to play. She's actually pretty strong. She has good application. The damage is okay. She's a range unit, so she can help out with, you know, exploration and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things for her. I think obviously she's not gonna be as valuable as like, you know, the Dendro god. She's not gonna be as valuable as someone like Nahida or Baizhe. She's not gonna be a main DPS or anything, but she's overall pretty solid, right? And if you want to play around with some burning team, if you want to run like kind of a burning situation with Mualani, for example, she's definitely an option. So that's what I think about the 4 stars here. That said, let's be real, nobody's going to be pulling for this banner for the 4 stars, everybody's going to be pulling for this banner for the 5 star that's here. But it's nice to see that we have some pretty decent characters in here, even if they are not the absolutely most goated characters out there. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is that obviously we have Xilonen and the rerun for Chiori. That also means that the weapon banner is absolutely bonkers. Because here, even without considering the 4 stars, my opinion on weapon banner is that you don't want to pull on a weapon banner if you're not okay with both weapons. If you're pulling on a banner that has only one weapon you want, you're gonna have a bad time. Now, the fate system, the fate points have been lowered from 2 to 1, which means you don't have to pull like 240 times. You can only, even if you lose once, you're gonna get the weapons you want next time. But still, it's a lot of resources. Not everybody is 160 pulls available just for the weapon banner. And that's why here, I think this banner is actually pretty goated. Because we both have the weapon for, obviously, Xilonen, which is very good. It's like a defense weapon. Do we have, did they drop the exact numbers for this? Okay, so there it is. Now we have the weapon here, Pig Patrol Song. So this is a very good weapon. Obviously, 82.7% defense is very, very strong, especially for her. She scales off of defense. That said, you don't absolutely need defense in her kit to make her function. She's perfectly fine without it. You can just run energy percentage weapon if you want, or anything like that, if you want to make sure that you can like use the ultimate as often as you can. Now, stat-wise, obviously she has a Ode to Flowers, which after a normal or plunging attack hits, the defense increased by 8% and you get a 10% all elemental damage bonus for 6 seconds, which can stack 2 times. You can get 16% defense and 20% all elemental damage bonus for 6 seconds. Now, this can trigger once every 0.1 second, so it's very fast, essentially. And when this effect reaches 2 stack, or the second stack duration is refreshed, increase all nearby party members' all elemental damage bonus by 8% for every 1000 defense the equipping character has, up to a maximum of 25.6%, which is absolutely bananas. You just give a 25.6% all elemental damage buff to your entire team from getting 2 stack of this, right? And 2 stack of this is just 2 basic attack that you need to do anyway during your rotation. This is incredibly powerful, very easy to proc, and getting that much defense is just not that hard, right? Like, you're going to need like 3.2k defense, essentially, right? And this is incredibly strong, right? And especially with like the base stat being defense percentage, that's gonna be super, super easy to get that buff going. It's very, very powerful. Obviously, the weapon looks sick. It actually has like the music going here. It looks fantastic. It's like all animated. I think it's the drip goes way too hard. I need this weapon in my life. Now, for the other weapon that we have, it's gonna be Chiori's signature weapon. And the thing with Chiori's signature weapon is that it actually gives, it's a crit damage weapon, right? So it gives 88.2% crit damage, and normal attack damage is increased by 6%, and elemental skill damage is increased by 24%. After a nearby active character deals geo damage, the aforementioned effect increased by 100% for 15 seconds. So, additionally, the wielder's defense increased by 20%. This is a decent weapon, a decent alternative, I feel like. This is not going to be the best weapon in the world, especially if you're playing your Xilonen as a support characters, but the weapon goes so hard, it looks great, and it's still a very, very good weapon if you have you know, a strong sword wielder, right? And you can even like use this. Let's say that you have your main DPS is a sword character, and then you have Xilonen in the team. That means that when Xilonen deals geo damage, you're gonna get a buff of like plus 32% increase in normal attack damage and 48% skill damage increase for elemental skill damage, which is absolutely crazy. So this is a great weapon for like a main DPS that you potentially put in a team with Xilonen, right? Which is absolutely fantastic. So even if you lose the 50-50 and you get this weapon, it's still very good if you have some of the characters that could like really benefit from her. If you want to kind of meme around and play Xilonen as a DPS, it's also a very good option, obviously. Because if you look here, sword, obviously it's okay for a lifetime, and it's definitely not best in slot. But this is a weapon that can be good for a lot of characters, right? This can be good for, you know, Ayaka, Chlorine. Like, it's going to be a strong stat stick regardless. So there is definitely potential for this weapon to be very useful for your account. It's one of those cases where it's like, even if you lose, you're not gonna feel like too bad if any of those characters here that you have or really like or want to build, right? So personally for me, this banner is definitely a win. Now, when we talk about the 4 stars on the banner, we can see here there is like the bone sword, the new like spear. I think that's a sack claymore. I don't know which weapon this is. Let's see. Sacrificial Greatsword, Favonius, Codex, and Rust. So Rust, I've got 1 billion Rust. But what's very interesting here, I'm not going to touch on the old weapon, I'm going to touch on the new weapons. We have the Mountain Bracing Bolt, it's a polearm, it's an energy recharge one, decreases climbing stamina consumption by 15%, increase elemental skill damage by 12%. Also, after other nearby party member use elemental skill, the equipping character's elemental skill damage will increase by 12%. So this is like a kind of a decent weapon. I could see these being used right now. I could definitely see these being used on like a cheetah, for example. The stamina consumption is like kind of nice for climbing purposes. Obviously for Kachina it works. Elemental buff. Overall, it's an okay weapon. The energy recharge is nice. I think it's a nice pickup, even if it's not absolutely like necessary, but there's like so many polearm support character that might need the energy recharge. I think it's pretty good, right? What I'm very curious is like 30.6% energy recharge. If you compare this to like a Favonius polearm, for example, can we see all of the weapons here? Let's see. Favonius lens Genshin. This gives 30.6% energy recharge at max level. So essentially, this is the same amount of energy recharge, right? So there is definitely value in this weapon, even if I'm sure a lot of people have Favonius Lens at this point. Favonius Lens needs you to have some crits to get like the increased energy particles, which is very nice. But here, instead of getting increased energy particle generation, instead you just get like increased elemental skill damage, which is also pretty good. I think the 2 weapons are going to be useful for the energy, and one gives you even more energy, but you need to build crits, and the other one gives you just straight up elemental skill damage. So I feel like this one maybe is more plug and play because you're not going to depend on something else. Now, the other weapon I want to look at is going to be the Sturdy Bone, which is a sword on the banner. And this one gives sprint or alternate sprint stamina consumption decreased by 15%. So this is very interesting because alternate sprint stamina, I feel like this probably affects a character like... I feel like a character, like characters that can fly, for example. So this probably affects like, you know, the Wanderer. Maybe this affects the charge, the floating dash charge that like Arlecchino has. This probably affects like Natlan characters, obviously, which is kind of nice. And then after using sprint or alternate sprint, normal attack damage is increased by 60% of attack. This effect expires after triggering 18 times or 7 seconds. So overall, this is an attack scaling weapon. It gives you attack. I feel like in terms of stats, I feel like it's a little bit underwhelming. I feel like for exploration it's probably good. Now for Xilonen, I think this is not going to be a very good option. It doesn't give defense, it doesn't give energy recharge. I feel like there's definitely better 4-star options. Even for free-to-play purposes, like the new 4-star weapon in Natlan that you can craft is probably a better for Xilonen. But this is certainly interesting. I like to see like more stuff for like sprint stamina consumption. Why not? I think it's kind of cute, kind of fun. So we'll see in the future. I'm probably gonna get at least one copy just for funs. But yeah, overall, I think these banners are looking pretty good. My goal right now is to get Xilonen and try to get a weapon, or get one of those two weapons, right? I definitely want to get hers, but even if I get Chiori's, I'm gonna be pretty happy. So anyway, this was a little bit all over the place. I'm really sorry for rambling, but I'm super excited. I'm gonna be pulling for her day one. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if this was useful. Drop a comment, like, subscribe, all the good, and I'll see you on stream.